Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're tackling something big. We've got a stack of sources centered on a major global alert, the brand new World Social Report 2025.
And our mission really is to use some foundational sociology as a kind of decoder ring.
Exactly, a set of blueprints to understand the deep forces behind all the instability and insecurity this report is talking about.
And this is high-stakes stuff. The report, it doesn't just note a bit of discomfort. It identifies a pervasive, multi-layered global social crisis.
Right.
The key thing for you to take away is that the institutions we all rely on, the economy, governments, our own communities, they're all under, well, profound stress at the same time.
And when they say crisis, they're pointing at very specific things. Escalating economic insecurity, massively rising inequality, and this feeling of social fragmentation.
And maybe the most dangerous piece of it all is a really deep decline in trust globally.
Yeah, and if you feel like things are just fundamentally worse than they used to be, well, you are definitely not alone. The report has this real gut punch of a statistic.
Oh, it's a shocking number.
Nearly 40% of people surveyed across the world believe that life is worse today than it was 50 years ago.
Wow. And what's crucial here is the context the report gives. They really emphasize that while, recent shocks like the pandemic or new conflicts brought this into sharp focus, these challenges have been decades in the making. They're actively eroding the very social fabric that binds us together.
So we're seeing cooperation weaken, civic engagement just sort of fading away.
And a growing support for, and I'm quoting directly from the report here, extreme political views.
And that's the danger spiral we have to figure out. So our plan for this deep dive is this. First, we'll look at the solutions, the blueprint for repair the report recommends.
That description.
And then we're going to use those core sociological lenses, how society is defined, how it orders itself, how it changes, to give you the context you need to really process this crisis. Okay, let's jump right into that prescription. The WSR 2025, it doesn't just stop at diagnosing the problem. It calls for a radical new policy consensus globally.
It does. The report centers on 3 foundational principles, and they say they're inseparable: equity, economic security for all, and solidarity.
Inseparable is the key word there.
It is. The core insight is that you can't fix the economic system without fixing the social one. And you can't fix the social system without fundamentally going after inequality.
So all these little fragmented, short-term policy fixes, they're just not going to cut it.
Nope. Which is why the report calls for an integrated, whole-of-government approach.
This sounds like a bit of jargon. What does that actually mean in practice?
It means breaking down the silos. It means the Treasury Department, the Education Department, health, labor, they all have to be coordinating under one systemic goal: reducing inequality.
So putting things like decent work and universal social protections right at the center of the entire agenda.
Right at the very heart of it. Things like basic income floors, healthcare access, that becomes the priority.
And that emphasis on decent work is so key. I mean, we're not just talking about unemployment stats.
No, not at all. We're talking about precarious jobs, gig economy jobs, jobs with no benefits that don't pay a living wage.
So demanding decent work is actually about changing the fundamental bargain between labor and capital.
Exactly. It's about rebuilding a system where most people don't feel like they're one paycheck away from disaster. But to understand how to rebuild that social fabric, we have to go back.
Right. We have to ask, what was the original blueprint? How did thinkers even believe society was formed in the first place? And that question takes us right into foundational sociology. For you, the listener, who wants to get this quickly but thoroughly, we need to get to the core insights.
Okay, so the main focus of sociology is what we call the social structure. We're looking at the institutions, the associations, the whole complex web of relationships that links everyone together.
So when the WSR 2025 report says the social fabric is eroding, they mean that web is literally fraying.
Precisely. And that web metaphor is a classic. R.M. McIver defines society as a web of social relationships. So simple, but so powerful.
While another sociologist, Morris Ginsburg, he kept it even simpler. A collection of individuals united by certain relations or mode of behaviors.
And the common thread in all of this is interdependence. When insecurity hits, that interdependence starts to break down, and the web tears. Which brings us to the first big debate about how that web even got here.
Let's start with this kind of revolutionary idea that we, as individuals, are the architects of society, the social contract theory.
Yeah, from thinkers like Hobbes, Locke, and Rousseau. And Thomas Hobbes. I mean, he painted this deeply pessimistic picture in his book, The Leviathan.
Really bleak, right?
Oh, completely.
Yeah.
He saw the state of nature as just chaos. Human life was, and this is the famous quote, solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and short.
So, because he thought people were just driven by self-interest and fear.
He argued society was a conscious, rational choice. It was basically a protection racket. People gave up almost all their liberty to a powerful sovereign, the Leviathan, just to survive.
So Hobbes gives us the law and order version of society. Stability, but at the cost of freedom.
Right. But then you get John Locke, who offered this crucial, optimistic counterpoint that really shaped modern Western thought.
He had a very different view of that state of nature.
Totally different. He didn't see it as a war of all against all. He thought it was a place of peace and goodwill where natural rights already existed. The only problem was the lack of a recognized system of law.
So the contract wasn't about escaping our own awfulness.
No. For Locke, man entered a contract to overcome that one deficiency, to create a government to protect liberty and rights, not to crush them.
Okay, so that's the architectural view. We built this thing. What's the alternative? The idea that society is something that just grew.
That's the organismic theory. You see it with thinkers from Plato and Aristotle all the way to Herbert Spencer. They argued society is not man-made, but a natural creation.
Like a biological system.
Exactly. Spencer explicitly calls society a greater organism that evolves, matures, and, well, declines, just like a living thing.
And he had some really direct analogies to make that stick, right?
Yeah. He did. Like, the body's circulatory system, which delivers nutrients, that's like a society's transport and communication networks delivering goods and information. The idea of societal decline, which obviously resonates with the WSR report, is baked right into this evolutionary theory.
Okay, so whether society was built or it evolved, the alarm bell from the WSR 2025 is that it's fracturing because of inequality, which brings us straight to social stratification.
Which is really just the architecture of inequality. It's the permanent division of society into groups, linked by, superiority and subordination.
It's the framework that makes sure inequality isn't just random, it's systematic.
It is. And this system, the structure, directly impacts how well people can actually live their lives. Which gets us to maybe the most vital concept for understanding this crisis. Max Weber's idea of life chances.
Life chances. Tell us what he meant by that.
Weber defined it as the extent to which you have access to crucial resources, things like food, shelter, education, healthcare.
So the reason wealthier people have better health, better education, longer lives?
It's because of the scarcity that's created by this unequal distribution. Their life chances are just fundamentally different from the start.
That is the exact mechanism the WSR report is describing. It's not just about having a low income. It's about your access to institutions and predictable outcomes being eroded.
Precisely. And if you're born with poor life chances, your trust in the system naturally is going to collapse.
And this fragmentation, this sense that the world is moving too fast and nothing makes sense, that feels like a different kind of tear in the fabric.
It is, and it sounds a lot like William F. Ogburn's concept of cultural lag. It is the perfect concept for our time.
Okay, so what's the lag between?
Ogburn saw a huge gap in the rate of change between two parts of culture, material culture and non-material culture.
Right, so our material culture is our stuff, our tools, our technology. That part is dynamic, it's target-oriented. We can always try to make a faster airplane or a more powerful AI.
Exactly, you can measure the progress. But our non-material culture, our laws, our morals, our social customs, that stuff changes so gradually. It relies on consensus.
You can invent a supercomputer in a year, but changing our ethical beliefs about what to do with it, that can take decades.
And that lag creates massive social stress. The classic example he used was the automobile.
Oh.
The car dramatically changed travel. That's a material change. But it immediately created social problems our non-material culture wasn't ready for.
Like traffic, road rules.
And, as the sources note, it gave criminals an easy escape. So our legal and policing systems, our non-material culture, had to amend themselves to catch up. That painful catch-up period is the cultural lag.
And when we talk about that feeling that life is worse, another thinker, MacIver, gave us a really useful distinction between what we own and who we are.
Yeah, he distinguished between civilization and culture. For him, civilization is what we have, our tools, our technology, our science, external things. And he argued civilization is always advancing.
Yeah, we don't forget how to build a better road.
Right. But culture is what we are. It's internal, organic, our art, our plays, our sense of community, social trust. And the key distinction is that culture is subject to retrogression. It can go backwards.
So that's it. When people say life is worse than it was 50 years ago, they're often not talking about their iPhone, which is civilization.
No, they're talking about the decline of shared values, the quality of our conversations, the strength of their community. That's culture. And that internal sense of loss is what fuels the emotional core of this social crisis.
That internal loss leads directly to declining trust, to intense polarization, that whole us versus them dynamic, which forces us to ask the power question. Who is actually in charge here?
Well, traditional conflict theory, especially Marxist schools, would say power is centralized in a ruling class. But the community power theory really challenges that.
It claims that in a functioning democracy, control is actually dispersed, right? That elites don't have a monopoly anymore.
Exactly. And this was famously tested by Robert Dahl in his huge study of New Haven, Connecticut. He didn't just look at who seemed powerful. He tracked who actually won fights over specific policies.
And what did he find?
His finding was pivotal. He found no evidence of a single unified ruling elite. Instead, he saw power dispersed among various interest groups.
A shift he called pluralism.
Yes. In this model, local politics is a business of constant bargaining and compromise between different groups.
But then, here's where we circle back to the crisis. If Dahl was right and power is dispersed, why do 40% of people feel like they have zero control?
Yeah.
Why the massive distrust?
That is the essential question of our time. I mean, is it possible that pluralism is failing? It assumes compromise is possible.
But if polarization is so bad that compromise becomes impossible,
then the system might just grind to a halt. Another researcher, Arnold Rose, he echoed Dahl with his multi-influence hypothesis, saying society has many competing elites. But for the average person, many competing elites can feel just as paralyzing as one single one.
so figuring out if the system is actually broken or if people are just misinformed, that takes some real critical rigor.
It does. You need both of the major research methods to get the full picture. You've got your qualitative methods, the in-depth case studies, the focus groups.
That gives you the why people feel the way they do.
And then you have the quantitative methods, which is the objective, systematic stuff based on precise measurement, the statistics to test if a trend is actually real.
The takeaway for you, the listener, is that whether you're looking at inequality or cultural lag or power, you have to apply that critical scientific rigor to really understand what's happening. Look, let's bring this all together. We've traced the arc of this global social crisis, from the WSR 2025 sounding the alarm on insecurity and distrust.
Right through to the foundational sociological concepts that help explain it. Whether society was built for protection, like Hobbes thought, or to formalize rights, like Locke argued.
And how that order can break down through stratification and cultural lag.
And just remember, the policy roadmap the UN laid out is clear. Action has to be anchored in equity, economic security, and solidarity. Failure to do that means this social fabric just keeps eroding.
It is heavy stuff, but now you have the vocabulary, the analytical frameworks, to look at the news you see every day and understand not just what's happening, but the potential structural causes for why it's happening.
And we'll leave you with one final thought, this one drawn from political sociology. Thinkers like Tocqueville, they warned against just deploring the evils of conflict. They said it's much wiser to manage it.
So conflict isn't just a bad thing.
He argued it's actually a condition of freedom because it prevents the concentration of power in one place.
Yeah.
So if we accept that the effective management of conflict through messy bargaining and compromise is essential for freedom, this raises a question for you. Does embracing the messy reality of social conflict, rather than just calling it polarization, does that become the necessary, difficult first step to achieving the solidarity the world so desperately needs?